Hi everyone, my name is Donnie Lowy from Closeoutexplosion.com. Hope you're having an amazing day today. Today I'd like to give you a review of the wholesale clothing business in Brooklyn. As you might know, I have a wholesale clothing business myself here in Brooklyn. I have a warehouse in Greenpoint. The next time you are in Brooklyn, you are welcome to visit my warehouse. And today what I'd like to do is give you some ideas, some information about the wholesale clothing industry that's taking place in Brooklyn. So let's start from scratch. Here's something very important you should know. Although the focus of the clothing business in New York City is in Manhattan, in the New York City Fashion District, or what's called the New York Garment District, you should know that a lot of that business has started to move out of Manhattan into Brooklyn and also into Queens. And the reason that is because the rents have gone up a lot in the New York Fashion District. A lot of national retailers have moved in, and a lot of the spaces that were otherwise being used in the Fashion District for showrooms are actually now being turned into restaurants, into bars, into stores for national retailers, and so on. And the rents have gone up a lot. I know, for instance, one fashion showroom, which is located on 35th Street near 7th Avenue, they had a lease for the last 10 years. Their lease was, escalated every few years, so their rent escalated, and they were paying, I believe the latest they were paying was $7,500 a month, which is a lot. They had about 1,000 square feet, and then the landlord said the landlord's not going to renew the lease at that going rate, but if they want the space, they're going to have to pay $12,000 a month. So that's a jump of, if my math is right, of $4,500 a month. And that means that just to cover the rent, they have to do that much more sales. Meaning, it's not that the landlord's telling them, okay, I'm going to charge you an extra $4,500 a month, but I'm going to give you an extra $4,500 worth of customers. No, the landlord just realizes what the going rate is. The landlord feels that he or she can get more money from other national retailers or other maybe restaurants or maybe high-end boutiques, and that's what the landlord wants to do. There's actually a lot of hotels that have opened up recently in the New York Fashion District, so a lot of more tourists are coming. So that might also be why the landlords are raising the rent. They see the value has increased of that location, and that's actually, by the way, why some of the wholesalers and some of the showrooms have remained in Manhattan, because there are a lot more tourists coming, and especially in that area. But as it is, overall, a lot of the showrooms have started to close, and they're shifting their operations outside of Manhattan. They've come to Brooklyn, to Queens, and some even have gone out to New Jersey. The challenge of New Jersey is that it's not that easy for customers who travel to New York to get there. On the other hand, the warehouse rent is a lot lower than it is in New York. So now, let me tell you about the clothing business in Brooklyn. There's two main aspects. One aspect is the brand name, the designer side, and the other one is more generic, private label side. If you go to a lot of the discount retailers in New York, you could see their retailers throughout New York. There's Gembro, there's Value Depot, there's, I don't remember the name of all the different stores, but if you travel, you go to the Fulton Market, you go all over New York, you're going to see many different retailers. There was Conway is closed, but there's many different ones. And when you visit them, you're going to see that there's a lot of clothing there that's either private label clothing, that's fashion label clothing, meaning that it's not a known name. Someone is importing clothing, they're putting a generic name on it, or it could be clothing by maybe a designer that was up and coming and the designer didn't exactly make it, or it's clothing by a brand which is no longer that popular. So there's a lot of wholesalers in New York that are catering towards those discount stores, and they're selling that clothing, of course, to the discount market. So if you travel to New York, you can find a lot of wholesalers that will buy clothing at that rate. You can buy clothing, if you're looking for just fashion, private label clothing, you could, generic clothing. You could buy wholesale clothing in New York for as low as $1 a piece. If you come to my warehouse, depends, of course, when you come, but I have some lots of clothing that I can offer you for as low as $1 a piece. Of course, it's not brand name, it's not designer clothing, but it's decent quality clothing for the discount market. Then you have the other side of the clothing business in Brooklyn, and that is the very high-end brand name designer clothing market. You have, first of all, department stores. You have Macy's, you have Century 21. You have, very high-end boutiques that need brand name and designer clothing, and there are wholesalers that supply that high-end clothing. There are wholesalers such as myself that sell Calvin Klein, R&M Richards, Nine West, Ralph Lauren, Disney clothing, and so on, and other high-end brands. And you can come, you can come to New York, you can come visit my warehouse, you can visit other warehouses as well and see what's available. And there's actually a third component of the Brooklyn market, and that is clothing which is made to order, made to print. Meaning you'll find a lot of generic clothing. Let's say you'll find clothing, you could buy t-shirts. You can buy blank t-shirts by Fruit of the Loom, by Hanes, and then you go to embroiderers, you go to printing shops, and then they will print different designs, different logos. They do that with clothing, they do it with hats, they do it with accessories, and that's another segment of the market. Now, in Brooklyn, you have flea markets, and some of these flea markets are very successful. A lot of customers go to those flea markets. There's customers in New York, such as in Queens, such as in the Bronx, or flea markets in New Jersey, and then there are also wholesalers that supply to those vendors as well. So you have a section of the Brooklyn wholesale market that is set up to cater towards flea market vendors and towards swap meet vendors. And you also have wholesalers in Brooklyn that are selling merchandise to people that are going to be exporting the merchandise. So for instance, in my warehouse I have brand name dresses, brand name suits, and many of my customers will buy the clothing and then they will export it, or I will export it on their behalf to Guyana, to Trinidad, to Jamaica, to Nigeria, to Ghana, and so on. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. My website is closeoutexplosion.com. Thank you and have an amazing day.